Welcome back to the AEC Hive, where we're talking about innovation in architecture, engineering, and construction. I'm Ralph Montague, Director at ArcDocs and co-founder of the AEC Hive.
Hi everyone, this is John Egan, CEO at BIM Launcher and co-founder at AEC Hive. Looking forward to today's discussion.
We're very excited today to have Niknaz Aftahi from AEC+Tech. Niknaz is the CEO and founder of AEC+Tech and also former Design Technology Director at ELS Architecture. Niknaz, you're very welcome. Maybe just to get started, you could give the listeners a bit of a background about yourself, and then we can get into a discussion about what you're doing at AEC+Tech.
Sure. Thanks, Ralph. Hi, Ralph. Hi, John. Hi, everyone. My name is Niknaz. I'm trained as an architect. I received my bachelor in architecture in Iran and then did my master of architecture at UC Berkeley here in the Bay Area at Berkeley. So for my thesis at Berkeley, I worked with a computer scientist and, we had this computational system and that's when I got really interested in the potential applications of technology in design. And then later when I worked as a designer at a couple of different architecture firms in the Bay Area and about 5 years for ELS Architecture and Urban Design, which is this great medium-sized firm in Berkeley, amazing people, beautiful projects. And I absolutely enjoyed working there. However, like many other, fresh young graduates that you go to work after school, in school, you do a lot of exciting projects, research, and then you go to the practice and there's this extremely slow, pace of traditional design workflows. So that was a bit frustrating for me. Here in the US, you call it there are all these different design sets, like design development, construction document, CA, all that. So you work on all these different sets and put things together, and then you get to repeat the same things over and over and over. So most of the times I felt like my brain is almost shut off unless I was involved with, a conceptual design phase of a project, doing design. Otherwise, it was just the same thing over and over. So I started doing a lot of research on new tools. I wanted to see how is out there that could help me. And I realized that there's actually so much that is happening in the built world tech, and most of it is still unknown to the industry. So people are just busy, meeting deadlines, pursuing new projects that no one except for, this small percentage of really big resourceful firms, but the rest of the firms are almost all of them behind. And I realized that, so I started this design technology group at ELS because our principals, the decision makers in our office, were very open to learn about new technologies and new tools. So we started this group. We were doing a lot of research on computational design tools, sustainability, visualization. And then, our principals were asking us to bring these tools to the office, introduce them. And I saw that the case studies, showing the real world applications basically of these tools were very powerful and good tools to convince our principals that these are, technologies and software and products that they should invest on. And we started, testing some of them, adapting some of them. So I realized that these case studies are very powerful.
Fascinating. So is the purpose of AEC+Tech to do what you were doing for a single practice in terms of sort of showcasing, introducing, demonstrating tools, that you want to do that now at a larger scale to, for a number of companies or a number of participants? Is that what you aiming
exactly
to do?
Yeah, exactly. So AEC+Tech is an online platform, is a website that is keeping track of the latest, technologies and tools, disruptive, emerging, whatever we want to call it, through sharing real world projects. So we want to show what companies are, how companies are using these tools and what kind of projects they are applying these technologies to and what size of projects. So it's basically a community of startups as well as AC companies and professionals who sign up, create profiles, and feature their work and projects.
How do you get the community? Because that's always an interesting question, is how to get the community to engage, and because obviously it takes time for somebody to create content to share on a platform. So it would sound like AEC Tech has two kind of players in that community. You got the people who have the technologies and are trying to showcase the capabilities of the technologies, and then you have a group of people who are using the technologies and want to showcase the use of the technologies in real world projects. So in those two groups, how do you encourage people to put in the effort, I suppose, to create the content, share the content? What's the incentive?
Yeah, we share with them the mission of this project, the goal, and the problem that is out there. So, the problem is really that this world of like building industry is an outdated, disconnected, decentralized, world. We all really know that. And the thing is that, so we all know that the AEC industry is moving so slowly in such a siloed fashion that cannot keep up with the world of technology that is moving so fast, light speed. So it has to start responding to growing client demand. It has to start actually to respond to growing regulations. Like, for example, in New York now, you cannot submit a project without submitting a BIM model. And this had huge implication on how architecture firms work in New York, and a burden on software companies, of course, to produce softwares that are easily adopted. And if you're not Gensler and you cannot afford these highly skilled design technologists, and ask them to spend, most of their time exploring and testing new technologies, then how are you going to know what software is good for you? So this is a real problem that we had. And on the other side of the spectrum, there are these, so this is like the AEC's industry side. And on the AEC technology side, we see that there is significant amount of, research, innovation, billions of dollars, $3 billion, I think, in 2019, for example, invested by VC companies on AEC startups and new softwares, and actually doubling venture, I think, over the past decade into construction. So all this is happening, and then so on the industry side, only in the US, there are 800,000 AEC firms, and only 1 to 2% of these companies have that, person or team that is doing the research for them. The rest are all falling behind. So almost all small and medium-sized firms don't have the time and money to do the research. And I was actually reading this very interesting article recently by Daniel Davies. He's one of my favorite researchers and writers. Then the article is called CAD's Boring Future. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes.
And yeah, that was a really good article. And he explains how there is this fat middle of the uniqueness spectrum, he calls it, that are all these like residential buildings and, basically ordinary buildings, apartments, car parks, hotels. And before, the technology was invented for all this, landmarks by star architects. But now technologies and, developers, entrepreneurs, innovators, they've realized that this is the biggest part of our cities and our world. So now they're spending, the resources to create tools and technologies for these. There's this rising number of tools in favor of making, let's say, mundane buildings better. So so this is a real problem, and the way that we gather the community together for AEC+Tech, that we try to explain this gap that exists between the industry and between the technology world, and we invite them to come on board and share their knowledge, share their work. It's going to help them save time, money, because we are building this platform as a database that is easy for everyone to research and access things. So it's going to help everyone and, ultimately help our built environments.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great work. And I suppose, John, you could probably comment from a technology provider's point of view, but just before that you do that, I was going to say from a practitioner's point of view, I suppose my sense would be that there's so much technology out there now, and a lot of the technology is quite mature, but definitely the adoption of technology is quite low. So there's probably lots of reasons for that, but the people are possibly using, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's like a single figure percentage of the capability of the technology that's out there. So we've got all these great tools and great capabilities of technologies, but very little adoption. If you look at that, as Daniel was describing his article, sort of the full spectrum, the adoption of all the capability across that spectrum is very low, and it's mainly in the high end bracket. Maybe the top 10% of companies are really getting into these technologies, whereas the majority are just as you said, they're plowing along with traditional processes and tools.
Yeah.
But that's just my sort of view, I suppose, from a practitioner's point of view, that there's almost too much technology, and it's very difficult to sift through everything that's happening and see what's relevant. And so, I would see AEC+Tech as a very useful tool to do that, as a way to sift through everything and find what's relevant. And anyway, John, from a technology provider's point of view, let's hear what you think.
One of the biggest challenges that we perceive our potential customers to have is, I suppose, coming to realize that technology solutions actually exist to automate or improve their workflows. A platform like AEC+Tech can really help with the discoverability of solutions that may help the way that they work, and obviously, like you, Niknaz, improve the way that they work by exploring and finding technologies to alleviate and expedite some of the workflows and processes that they are currently doing manually.
So if you have these two customer types, I suppose, Niknaz, the practitioners, maybe more like myself, and the technology providers like John. Maybe if you want to start with John's problem, how does AEC+Tech solve John's problem of people discovering his?
Yeah, sure. So actually, we are. So the goal is connecting the two sides that you just mentioned, industry to technologists and to these amazing, exciting technology companies. And so far, we've launched a few months ago, about 6 months ago. So far, we have about 80 AEC technology companies on the platform. And then we also have AEC firms on the platform, some like prominent ones like Walter P. Moore, MBBJ, Bjark Ingel, WRNS, and some others, that we've invited them to come and create profiles on the platform as well and engage, with this project. And of course, we are now trying to expand the presence of developers, builders, the potential customer base. And we have a number of VC investors who are interested. Some of them have signed up. Some of them are just checking the platform. They are also interested to see what's going on. Some of these tech companies that we have on the platform are still very early stage. So I've realized I didn't really created this as a tool for VC investors really, but now I've realized that these investors are interested because this company is still, some of them being early stage, they want to see like what is happening, and more investors are actually becoming interested in build tech and climate tech and all these different technology groups. But anyways, what we do is that we are providing this platform, and we work on our search engine optimization, SEO. The developer is making the search system as easy and as accurate as possible to find similar tools. And we are also giving categories to each tool. So let's say, there's this AR/VR tool, as an example. So we give 3 categories to each tool, and the company give, because people take ownership of their profiles, so they can always change it, update it. So 3 categories for each tool, and then we're going to show recommendation so when someone is checking that specific tool, not only users can easily and quickly see all the, case studies, key information, basic key facts, but also they can see similar tools and they can compare them to one another. So we are hoping that this makes, because there's no, I did it when I was in practice, when I was at ELS and I started that design technology committee. I was always looking, online, like most of my time in the office, searching for it. And it was very difficult unless you go to conferences and you're part of webinars and, online events all the time. Some of them it was before pandemic that many of them were expensive to attend, and they're lengthy. Sometimes you have to travel. Now after pandemic, it's easier because most of them are online, but you had to travel all the time. And, not all companies have the budget to do that. And then after you come back from the conference, sometimes you forget all that unless you took really good notes and you document everything. So with AEC+Tech, I really wanted to have this, online thing, one-stop shop, a resource that you can go back and see what's happening. And then, so the next step for AEC+Tech, we are hoping that beside growing the community and bringing more innovative companies like Beam Launcher on board and, collecting more case studies. Now we have hundreds of case studies, but we are hoping that maybe in a couple of months from now, in a year, we have thousands of these projects, case studies. And we have a machine learning advisor, computer scientist advisor. So he has told us that he can leverage the data to become an AI-powered platform. We don't talk about it that much right now because it's not happening yet. We don't have that much data, really. It's not feasible yet. But the hope is that once we have thousands of these projects and we are documenting all the information, project type, project size, everything, so we can develop a matching system or a recommendation system that if you are an AC company and you're checking the platform, we're going to recommend you the right tool for you based on your company and your project type and your project size. And if you are a tool innovator, a tool maker, we're gonna suggest the best potential clients for you, again based on the past projects. So to both sides we can create this let's say matching system, and we hope that will be even more useful. But for now, it's just this system that, like I said, SEO people are finding us just by Google search. We have a lot of people, the Google search, like, I don't know, ArchiCAD, things that are more known to the community, like ArchiCAD versus Rhino versus like Revit, for instance. But once they come to the platform, then they can see, wow, there are all these other tools. Now we have about 80 companies that are registered, but we have about 200 something 50 that we have the profiles. So wow, there are these 250, and we have categories. So when they go to the category, they go to the Beam category or to AR, VR, drones or different ones, then they can see all the innovative companies.
Yeah, I suppose as a practitioner, I'm probably less excited about that number growing because as the pool of available technologies grows, the idea of trying to find what's significant and what's relevant just becomes much more challenging. But I think what you said there about sort of using sort of machine learning and artificial intelligence to match people's needs to the technologies and try and filter down stuff, that sounds incredibly interesting because it's helping people to filter through all the information that's available. And of course, all the information is available because we live in the information age, and just about everything you want to know is available somewhere on the internet, probably, but it's finding it, and so it's great what you're doing with AEC+Tech to kind of bring that information into a portal that makes it relevant to people.
And Raf, I have to mention that it's not an easy task to convince these companies in the architecture and AC world to share with us what they are doing and how they are using these tools. It's easier to convince, of course, innovative tech companies, but we also do want the firms that are already using these tools to share with us how it's helping them, how much time and money they're saving now, why they like it, what was the previous method that they had. And then the biggest challenge, earlier you were asking me about how we are bringing the community together and the challenges. One of the biggest challenges is I've realized this competition and secrecy culture that we have as really inherent parts of our industry. Because if you think about it, there is one project, there's one physical project, and then different companies compete, and then one or a couple of companies get to design or construct it. So you always think about competing with others and company. You're really schooled with that. And then we have this lack of openness in our practice to scale towards adjacent industries and further towards policy. If we think about medical field or food industry. So our work most of the time it just remains a one-off set of drawings on a server somewhere, a bunch of code never to be reused, and finally, a luxury product or a building that is out there. But then if we look at the technology world, one of the greatest gifts is that ability to scale ideas and knowledge. So when we go to AEC companies and we invite them to come and share their tech-related learnings with us, then and just simply sharing their workflow and just simply share with us what their favorite product is. It's not easy because they are not used to that. Everyone is thinking about, wow, inside knowledge. This is our inside knowledge. I've spent like so much money and time on this. I'm not gonna share it with the world. But like anything else, it's a culture. It's a culture that we must start to create. We have to start at some points, and it always starts with a few people, with a few, companies. Every movement starts like that, initiating this, and then others get inspired and follow. Okay, wow, these 10 other companies that are the same scale as us are doing that, so we should do that. It's gonna give us ultimately more visibility. If we don't do it, then people think we're not using any cutting edge technology. So we just ask them, so what is your favorite technology tool? How do you think it's helping you? How do you think it has improved your work? And ultimately we want to help you, so just tell us.
Yeah, it's a big question. We've discussed it many times on this podcast and with John, this idea of open source, which is very strong in the technology world, of people collaborating in a much better way and opening up knowledge to a wider community versus, as you said, the competitive and secret nature that exists in the AEC+Tech. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, John?
One of the things was around how these people that you're trying to put technology in the hands of can find the right technology. So as you mentioned earlier, you categorize by technology, so drone, VR, AR, but as a, let's say for instance, cost consultant, I may not know that AR and VR and drones can be used in my role. So I'm wondering why you chose to categorize by technology rather than use case or role within the project, and maybe you can share some insight to the decision-making process behind the design of that aspect of the platform.
Yeah, John, that's a great point. So, right now, the way we've categorized things is that, so for technologies, we give them categories up to 3. So let's say cost estimation, BEAM, and AI powered. So 3 categories for each tool. And then when we also have categories for the companies, for AEC firms, we group them by industry type or sector, like architecture, construction, real estate, development. So we have a bunch of different industries that, and also size of the company, project type. So most of the their specialty basically. And then for case studies, we also categorize the case studies by project types. So it gets a little complicated, but the reason we do that, because we want to, like you're saying, John, we want to, for that recommendation system that we are thinking about and ultimately we want to, implement and give suggestions, we want to get as much information as possible from the users, but then at the same time organize them so we can use it for our own algorithm, if it makes sense. But John, please let me know maybe later after the podcast if you have any other idea, because it keeps evolving and changing, and I really welcome comments and ideas of this categorization system that we currently have.
Well, I can't really, I did try and build a technology database before, and this was one of the questions that I had. And by the sounds of things, you're going with an approach where you can query based on any attribute of any technology, which is, I suppose, the most flexible way to do it. So that's a good approach. I think that one of the biggest challenges that I see is, obviously people that aren't involved in technology, they're almost like looking down a rabbit hole at technology, and it's really just about how you bring them on the journey down that rabbit hole, which is the key, at least as I'm concerned, the key to put technology in the hands of the industry.
You have to show people that how it's relevant, how it's going to make their job better. And so I don't think you should, as you're going along, forget what you're doing, what you did, Niknaz, for your company, that role you had of sort of distilling all the technologies and then sort of communicating that to your design practice and telling them this is how it's going to make your job better. And so you're just doing that thing at a much bigger scale.
Yeah, and also, even the term, I've noticed that even the terminologies, like John was saying, the rabbit hole, people just get scared and get afraid of these, words. A lot of, decision makers in offices are, more senior professionals that don't necessarily connect, with this world of technology. So it's very important that we approach them the right way. And that's why I was talking about case studies. I noticed that when I show them similar companies that are using these tools, like let's say Inkscape or Lumion. Okay, look, these are 10 of your competitors. Similar, they are not like Gensler, they're not Zaha Hadid, they're not like, huge companies with specific kind of project. They are just like us doing residential. I don't know. There's this just like 10 people firm that is using this tool, and then they start to listen to you, because otherwise they just say, we don't know coding, we are not this like very rich and super resourceful company, we don't have the money. No, come on, like look at the projects they are not working on, specific type. So it's important how you, let's say, market the product, how you talk to these decision makers about these tools, and you really show the power in the right way. So, and on the other side, you tell them how they can integrate this tool into their workflow, and it's not going to take their job. There's this idea of like technology getting our jobs, as architects, we're not going to be around in 10 years. I don't think that's really true. It's just that using these tools, integrate it in our process and make our job better. We ultimately, our role may change, but it's not going to happen overnight. They're not going to, get our jobs. So, really like talking to practitioners, more like senior staff the right way, and showing similar firms using this technology, showing case studies could help a lot.
Absolutely. And do you think the fact that you didn't grow up in the Bay Area and like the sort of the center of technology, does that give you some unique insights as you do venture into this world of building technology, but also engaging with companies, because sometimes you find that people have grown up in the technology center of the world, if you like, have a particular view of the world and perspective that maybe isn't the same as people that are not in that sphere, if you like.
That's a good point, Ralph. I've never actually thought about it. Maybe or maybe not. So, I did my bachelor degree in Iran. So in Iran, I'm a Baha'i, my religion, and in Iran I couldn't go to university because of my religion. It's a long story, but I'm thinking that maybe the root of what I'm doing is coming from that sense of, so Baha'is, after the revolution happened in Iran, after the Islamic Revolution, Baha'is were banned from going to university. Still the government doesn't let Baha'is pursue their higher education at the university. So I studied at this like underground, or maybe underground is not a good word because government already knows about it, but they don't let us even have those classes at homes. So like all our, like, let's say math class, physics class, architecture, they like police come, arrest the professor. It's like, it's really like a long story.
Really what you're describing is an environment where you've been heavily restricted from accessing information.
Exactly.
And
so
knowledge.
Exactly. So I got used to like working super hard and always getting ahead of the game, because we all wanted to prove to them that it's wrong. We are like super talented and excited about like knowledge and education and all. So I'm used to this culture of like just working hard and just like being innovative and like going faster than others. So I have to prove to the community that we can do it. And then we did it with the Baha'i community in Iran. So I'm also used to having a community around me always to support one another. So when I came here, so UC Berkeley was great. So UC Berkeley accepted my undergrad degree. I did my master's there. UC Berkeley was great, but when I went to the practice, I felt there was this like slow, pace of work. It was not making me happy. I'm just used to like, my brain is used to work all the time, like 24/7, just like think about like innovation and the thing. And architecture was not that. It was slow and I was not happy. And then like you're saying, maybe living in the Bay Area. So my husband is a machine learning scientist and a lot of my friends, around me are like in technology and always like, again, like fast paced world. Maybe that also had some like gave me some inspiration or ideas of this is like what we are doing in the world of architecture. It has to change and it has to change fast.
Yeah. I think it's a
Otherwise,
fascinating perspective because on the one hand, you've probably learned through your background the value of being able to access knowledge and information. Yeah, more than maybe a Westerner who's just always had access to information and probably takes it for granted. So you sort of appreciated that, the value of information and the value of knowledge probably more than somebody who's just grown up around it. Because I definitely think that about people, that information is so pervasive now. It's just everywhere. It's a commodity effectively, and people take it for granted and sort of blatant or almost blatantly ignore it. We're surrounded by knowledge and information, and yet we don't try and get best use out of it. And so it's fascinating that you have that background of the two worlds, if you like, of a world that is very restrictive in accessing knowledge and information, and in a world that's just full of it. It's everywhere.
Yep, for sure, exactly.
And hopefully that's shaping the way the AEC+Tech is developing. Is that you're really packaging, if you like, knowledge and information in a format that makes it relevant and hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. And also the value of community, Ralph, so the way I studied in Iran, so the name of our university is the BIHE, Baha'i Institute for Higher Education. So it was really the community, like our professors are all expelled professors from universities because in Iran, they also don't let Baha'is teach at the university. So I really saw the power of a community that come together and think about, a collective good. So I always think about AEC+Tech as a community of people who come together.
What would you say, having now experienced the AEC Tech world, what is the big challenge for us? Well, because what we're really interested on AEC Hive is innovation and how we're going to move things forward and progress this industry. So firstly, what do you find are the biggest barriers and obstacles and challenges that you're coming across? And then on the other side of that, like, what are the things you're most excited about?
So, the challenges, as far as the biggest challenges, like, how we were talking about competition and secrecy, those I see as the biggest challenges, and the lack of openness, in our practice. And, I understand that some clients may not feel comfortable sharing their information, a lot of projects are confidential, but I think it never hurts to ask them. We can always ask. Sometimes they did not even think about sharing this, like, let's say, public data sets. So we had this machine learning event earlier this month, and we had a scientist from Autodesk, Chin Lee, and he was sharing with us how they do not really have, even Autodesk, they don't have access to a lot of public data sets. And he was saying how in our industry, we don't have that many data scientists. Again, compared to other fields like medical field or food industry. There are so many. I actually have a couple of friends that left architecture and became data scientists, but now they're not working in the AEC industry. They're working in other industries. So these are, challenges. We need more people doing research on what's out there, what's needed. We need more public data sets, data that can be shared with everyone so they can do more research on it in different capacities. And so another challenge is it is like rigid ideas of inside knowledge. This is like my company's knowledge, so that should be thrown away. Some part of it, confidential project, okay, that we understand, but the rest we can always like check with. And of course, so our industry is a 3,000 year, it's like thousands year old, like 3,000-year-old almost profession. So we should always remember that, okay, this is a really old industry. We have a lot to teach, of course, to the tech industry, and we also have a lot to learn from other industries and from tech industry. So, and I think you asked me one more question. Challenge, and
what's got you really excited at the moment about the thing?
Oh, excited! I'm so excited about all these, tools and new products that are out there. So we have now, like I mentioned earlier, about 80 companies registered on our platform, and I'm literally excited about every single of them. I just get super, passionate and excited about what they are doing and the power of their tools. Like construction technologies. We have many like Genda, Plan Loader. I'm sure most of them, like Offsite, Project Ready, Green Badger, many more. So what they do is that they streamline project management and construction time, and they allow for efficient collaboration. We all know that construction is responsible for 38% of carbon emissions. So the less time that a project takes, the smaller its environmental impact, of course. So I get really excited. And then there are like all these like simulation products like OMRT, Global Software. They're doing structural simulation, and there are a lot of generative design tools for various tasks. Beam products like Beam Launcher is a great tool. Like a lot of like clash detection. There's Layer App, Beam Spot, Beam Track, D-Roots, there's so many. And then AR, VR, digital twins. But we should be careful, like, sorry, John was saying earlier, like putting the categories name. So we should be careful that we use them in the right way. Like, for instance, digital twin. So this has become some of these words have become, now are being used too much, that people just don't get it necessarily fully what this product does. So like when I'm always careful when I'm talking to AEC firms not to use a lot of like these acronyms, these like technical acronyms, because it may just throw them off. We have to like explain it really in a way that they fully like see the power of how it can be integrated into their process.
Yeah. And I suppose with engaging with all these different technologies on your platform, it's probably giving you some insight as to what's coming down the track. What are you seeing as something that maybe at the moment seems a bit out there, or people haven't really discovered or found useful, but like what's emerging? Are you thinking, well, that's really interesting. Maybe it's not quite the right time, but it's emerging as a technology or way of doing. Is anything like that you?
There are a couple of new technologies that I've noticed. So, now we are living in a world of, cloud flexibility, distributed team, and remote work. So remote hybrid work is becoming really the standard now. And I think there's this like new generation or everyone maybe now working remotely, even though some architecture firms and I'm not sure about construction, but maybe engineering are inviting their employees to go back, or at least like go back a couple of days a week. But a lot of people are working remotely. So I think now people are becoming more open-minded, and they are growing an appetite for doing things differently as far as, collaboration. And there are now tools that like let's say AR, VR, or there is this tool. Let me see if I can remember their name. Arkeo. It's a company in the Netherlands. They signed up on our platform a few days ago, and I was fascinated by the technology they have developed, and they have this system of people working in a virtual world, people working together, and they can easily change this, let's say, height of the building, or work on the design development of the project.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I think just as an architect, as you've progressed, well, in my career anyway, from the days of working on drawing boards, you probably don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
But and you had this massive piece of equipment that you had to take with you. Well, you couldn't take it everywhere, so you had one in your home and one in the studio. And then you progressed to computers, and the first computers were also really big, clunky, chunky machines. Yeah, and over time those have become easy to where now you can sit at home on a laptop and and collaborate with someone in a different part of the world. But that Arkeo thing where people are standing virtually in a space around a site and sort of pulling and pushing shapes and sizes and making decisions, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. And also like climate tech, there are all these new energy modeling tools. So when I was at ELS, I remember that for a couple of months we were researching energy modeling tools. We were looking for something like Ladybug is a great tool. Then we found Sapphira, we found some other tools, but for all of them you have to spend a lot of time learning and compare them to one another. So AEC+Tech, we are hoping to make that easier, but now there are more tools, like there's tool, there are some other tools, energy modeling, also climate tech. Climate change is on everyone's agenda, how we're going to battle it. There are all these 20, 30 challenges and different challenges in the US to go low carbon, zero carbon. So these tools are also very exciting. And another thing is that companies that sign up on AEC+Tech, they are from all over the world. It's very interesting, and it's great for me to learn about these companies around the world, because for some reason we always tend to hear more about companies in the US, or maybe it's us being in the US, or maybe they have more funding advertising their tools in the early stages. But now we have companies like FBR is a robotic company. It's a great company in Australia. They have developed this Hadrian X that is the world first mobile robotic block laying machine. Or we have Digital Blue Foam. It's a Singapore-based AI-powered company. They are working on generative design tools. So I'm excited that we are becoming a global community of people from everywhere, not just the US.
Fantastic. What's the call to action? People obviously go to your website, so you sort of targeting the two groups, the technology providers. They can create a profile for themselves, and they can use that as a way to communicate what they're doing with your community. And then the other group is technology users to come and create a profile and show off basically how they what they're doing in terms of their projects. And so where do people go?
Yeah, exactly. So we call them end users. So we have the tools and tool innovators, and we have the end users. So end users are either companies, AEC firms, or they could be just individuals, professionals who are using a certain tool and they want to share with us their project and their workflow and their learnings. So the call to action is that they can create a profile, and basic profiles are free. So far everything has been free on our website, and it's gonna remain free. We are planning to add a number of features get a demo button, a couple of other buttons that we will add to each page, and later on in a couple of months we will charge tech companies for those features. But as far as the basic profile and that will remain free, and everyone will still show up in our search system, in a comparison section, and all that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we've reached the hour, Niknaz, and it's been fascinating talking to you, and I'm sure we could talk for a lot more, but maybe we'll follow up with some more conversations. Hopefully we can meet up in person one day.
Sure.
But I think what I've come away with today is I really liked your story, your personal story about, growing up in an environment where you were restricted from accessing knowledge and information, going to an environment where you're now making it through your platform, making it accessible, making knowledge and information accessible to the community, making it relevant. So great job you're doing. I really applaud you for doing that.
Thanks so much, Ralph. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah. It was a great conversation. The time passed by so quick. I didn't realize it's already an hour. Wow.
Yeah, John, you got anything else you want to add there?
No, just wish you the best of luck with your platform. And I do intend to upgrade the BIM launcher profile on there sometime. So yeah, thanks for that, Niknaz, and thanks for your time. Look forward to speaking next time.
Of course. Thank you, John. Thanks for having BIM Launcher on our platform. We are very excited and honored. So hope to see you both at some point in person.
Thanks, Niknaz, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.